Welcome back to Ripestories. In this video, a crazy neighbor forced me to get a tree cut down at gunpoint. Without wasting any more time, let's dive right into the video. The property I live at used to belong to my grandparents, so a lot of stuff on the land when I got it had some sentimental value to me. The main one for this story being a beautiful tree that was by the side of the house. Right near it was a door leading to the kitchen, and I used to play around that tree all the time. Long gone was a swing that my grandpa put up for me to use. I would climb the tree, run around it in circles. For those younger people reading this, trust me when I say that those were very normal things to do as a kid back then. I had friends in that neighborhood too, and a tree back then could be anything we wanted it to be. A hiding spot behind it, home base for a game of tag, and one of the sides of a goal for a game of soccer. Sticks that fell near it would transform into swords and guns in the mind of children. Basically though, the tree had a lot of memories behind it that made me love it. From a more practical adult point of view, it was also good because it was a bit of a barrier between me and my neighbor. Now Mr. Brown, my neighbor, was a jerk even when I was a teenager, and he was a young new homeowner. We had issues when I would stay with my grandparents. He would hate that I was a little loud outside with my friends and tried to lie that we were drinking and that he was smelling weed. Just causing problems for no reason, really, and aside from the fact that he just was not a nice person. When I got the house, Mr. Brown was still there, and at this point I would say he was maybe about 40 years old. Married with a couple of kids, but that did not change the fact that he was still just an overall bad person. He was a difficult neighbor that always wanted to complain about something, but nothing more than he would complain about the tree. He came to me, complaining and moaning several times about the tree blocking his view and the shade from it stopping his kids from being in the sun, despite the fact that he had a lot more yard than what the tree covered. It was on my property though, and I kept it well maintained and got it pruned a couple times when some branches seemed close to coming down if a storm hit. I was considerate of not wanting it to cause damage, but what he was complaining about was not damage. It for sure did not help that I had a bit of a snarky mouth, and when I was in a bad mood decided to bite back at his complaints. Telling him shade was good because he wouldn't want his kids getting overheated or getting skin cancer. The wrong things to say to this kind of guy who now magically decided that I wanted his kids dead for some reason. Most of the time I was polite though and told him that I was not gonna get rid of the tree, and since it was on my property it was my sole decision anyway. Well, Mr. Brown one day took things a little bit too far. Like he went from 10 to 10,000 with the level of action that he decided to take. He came into my backyard when I was in it and he was holding a handgun. He pointed it right at my face and I swear that I stopped breathing and almost peed in my pants. I could not believe that my neighbor was pointing a gun at me because he was a jerk, but I didn't think that he was crazy or anything before that. He did not want me to give him money or anything of value that I had. No, this maniac with a gun wanted one thing and one thing only: for my tree to be cut down. He was demanding that I get a chainsaw out of my garage and use it to cut down the tree. At the time keeping the gun fixated on me, but there was a big problem with this. I mean, aside from the whole gun thing being a huge problem of course, this was a big tree and one guy with a chainsaw was not gonna get it down, not to mention the safety risk. I tried to reason with Mr. Brown to just go back to his house, but those comments just got him angrier and I didn't want to get shot. I told him that I would call a tree removal service and pay them to cut it down. I would do it on speakerphone, so no funny business. He agreed with that and made sure he was the one holding the phone and dialing the number. I had no choice but to act like I wanted the tree removed and even agreed to pay extra for same-day services. The wait was horrible, as it was 2 hours of sitting in my yard with Mr. Brown pointing a gun at my head. I did not dare to try and speak to him and he had my phone, so calling the police was not gonna happen. I was terrified that once the tree was gone he would shoot me anyway or something like that. The gun was hidden away once the company came, but I was too scared to say anything to them about it. I'd always learned to just give the person threatening to kill you whatever they want. Living to the next day should be the main objective here. I learned that more in a retail store sense where it didn't end up happening. Never would I have dreamed that in my own backyard would I be needing to live by that code. I wrote them a check which I'd gotten before they came. As Mr. Brown escorted me into my home to get it, they left and I was more scared than ever for what he might do next. Well, he did not shoot me though and instead went back to his own house like nothing happened. I went into my house, locked all the doors and windows and called the police. I told them exactly what happened and that I was scared he would come back with a gun and actually shoot me this time. Before I knew it, the place was swarming with cops. They did a search of his house and found multiple guns that were not properly secured at all. What he didn't know was that when I bought the house, I had installed security cameras on the outside so I would be alerted if anybody broke into the house. The cameras spanned most of my backyard and they could see clear as day how he was holding me at gunpoint. They couldn't do anything about the tree sadly, since it was gone already and now a civil issue. He was arrested though for having multiple guns not being secured with kids around. He also had guns without any serial numbers, which from my understanding is a big no-no. Plus of course under arrest for holding me at gunpoint. I knew he was pissed off from that, but I was only getting started because while the city dealt with his criminal charges, I was finding a lawyer for a civil case. I could not get the tree back, that was impossible, but my lawyer did tell me that I could sue him for a decent amount of money since he forced me to cut it down. We did research and found that the tree was worth around $30,000, way more than I would have thought, and was excited to see if I could actually get awarded that much money. Now for what I consider the best part of the story, Mr. Brown facing the consequences of his own actions. In civil court, I will admit, was boring since I had all the evidence and was granted the money, with him not really having much to say in his defense. He owed me $30,000 for the tree and another $3,000 for what I paid the tree removal company. I would be using some of it to plant a new tree and fix the land that was messed up from the removal. That was the least of his problems though. Since I was the one held at gunpoint, I did get to go to the criminal trial and give a statement. I don't know why he didn't plead guilty with all the evidence against him, but I would assume his cocky personality just wouldn't allow for it. During the whole thing, what I want to mention is this insane speech he gave when it came time for him to try and justify his actions. Mr. Brown, I was not thinking about what I was doing. That tree was causing me so much distress that I just started acting without any logic or thought going behind what I did. I was looking at the tree and seeing how it ruined my property, and the next thing I knew, police were at my door arresting me. Lawyer, are you saying that you don't remember doing any of the actions in the video that were shown moments ago? Mr. Brown, no, I must have blacked out, or maybe it was just somebody else that looked like me. I could never hurt another human being. If anything, the stress from the tree snapped something primal inside of me, but I cannot remember any of it. So yeah, he was trying to pretend that the tree caused him so much distress that he actually blacked out and did all of those things without realizing it. A fugue state, his lawyer was calling it, to try and get his punishment reduced. Also adding in that it could have been somebody that looked like him in an attempt to make the jury question things even further. Nobody really believed it though, as it was clearly him in the video, and the fact that he had taken time to get rid of serial numbers on the guns meant that there was a plan. A premeditated plan, and not just him snapping and going outside with a gun. The charges against him for child endangerment were not gonna vanish either, as people really don't like it when children are put in danger that could easily be prevented by either not having a gun or just storing it away. Not to mention the intimidation, manipulation and other power he got from the gun. In order to pay the courts and the money he owed me, he was forced to sell the house. I did not feel bad for his wife and kids either, since he had put them in danger, and I feel like anybody who married him would be better off without. I hope the tree that now grows is as good as the one that I had lost. Someday, maybe I can have grandchildren in the future that run around and play under it like I did. And the next one is titled, Am I the a-hole for not removing a healthy tree from our property even though the neighbor demanded it? We have an elm tree in our front yard nearish to our neighbor's property. The way the tree has grown, a hefty portion of the limbs and canopy heads in their direction, and it hangs over some of their side yard and gravel parking pad extension to their driveway and maybe some of the driveway. They hate the tree because 1, they are afraid it will damage their house if it comes down in a storm. Several arborists have said the tree is healthy, the nicest tree in our yard, and it is not at any more risk of damaging their house than any of the other many trees in proximity to their home. Number 2, they don't like the leaves and sticks that drop in their yard. They are yard enthusiasts and mow and leaf blow several times per week. Number 3, seasonally the tree drops some mucus that gets on their cars. They say it's starting to ruin the paint. Not sure this is true. They would be happy to have no trees around at all, as they see them as just a nuisance. We encouraged them to call out an arborist to see what could be done, but they want it to be our problem and not be inconvenienced to have to deal with it. In the 10+ years we have been their neighbors, we only recall them mentioning the tree once, which was 2 years ago when some branches were approaching their roof, so we had it pruned back and looked at to make sure it was healthy. We just consulted with 2 different arborists who said there's no reason to take the healthy tree out. They can prune it again, but to avoid stressing it, they cannot take off all that's encroaching on the neighbor's property nor cut to the level that would placate the neighbor. They will thin out the canopy some, remove the bit of dead branches and prune what they can. Legally, we needn't do anything because there's no hazard. Legally though, they can pay to remove what's on their property, but if it ends up killing the tree, we could sue for 3 times the value of the tree. We sent the neighbor the quote and recommendation from the arborist with a picture of what they can prune and indicated that was our plan. The quote included the arborist's request to use the neighbor's driveway for their bucket truck. Neighbor wrote back not allowing the use of their driveway, saying it has cracks and don't want to risk damage. They are unhappy that the pruning is a band-aid solution and we are not cutting the tree back like they asked in order to prevent more damage to their property. They seem to not understand that there's no middle ground between taking the whole tree out and pruning it back to the level recommended by the arborists at a charge of $775 to us that we were willing to pay to be nice. Husband is adamantly against taking the tree out. It frames the other trees in our yard and even the arborist said it would look weird without it. It also provides shade and there are not many elms left in this area due to Dutch elm disease. We live in a neighborhood with mature trees that literally borders a forest. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for not removing the tree? ETA, we still plan to have the tree pruned. The arborist is apparently able to climb instead of using the bucket truck. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think OP is being the a-hole here or not? And after you've done that, we will now read the update to the story. It's been 6 months since my original post and I wanted to provide an update on the tree situation. So a lot has happened and I think it's important to share how we handled everything, especially since many of you asked for updates. First off, we went ahead with the pruning as planned. The arborist did an amazing job climbing the tree instead of using a bucket truck. He carefully trimmed what he could while maintaining the tree's health, thinned out the canopy and removed the dead branches. It cost us the $775, but it was worth it to be proactive neighbors. About a week after the pruning, we got a certified letter from our neighbor's lawyer demanding we remove the tree entirely, claiming it was a nuisance and threatening legal action. The letter cited potential property damage from the tree on their vehicles. I'll admit, this initially scared us, but we decided to consult with a property lawyer who specialized in tree law. Our lawyer, Sarah, was fantastic. She explained that in our state, healthy trees are protected by law and our neighbors' complaints did not meet the legal definition of a nuisance. She helped us draft a response letter that included documentation from 3 certified arborists stating the tree was healthy, proof of regular maintenance including the recent pruning, photos showing the tree's position relative to property lines and citations of relevant local ordinances protecting mature trees. The letter cost us $400, but it was worth every penny. About 2 weeks later, our neighbors came over unannounced. The conversation went something like this. Neighbor, we got your lawyer's letter. This is getting ridiculous. Me, we're just protecting our property rights, just like you're trying to protect yours. Neighbor, but the tree is damaging our property. The sap, the leaves. My husband stepped in and said, we have had multiple arborists confirm the tree is healthy. We have done professional pruning and we are maintaining it responsibly. The law is clear on this. Neighbor, so you're just gonna hide behind lawyers? Me, we are not hiding. We are just following the law and maintaining our property. We have spent nearly $1,200 between pruning and legal fees to be good neighbors, but we won't remove a healthy tree that adds value to our property and the neighborhood. They then left angry, but here's where it gets interesting. A week later, their realtor put up a for sale sign. It turns out they'd been planning to sell anyway, which probably explained their sudden aggressive push about the tree, and the best part, the new buyers who came to look at the house actually commented on how beautiful our elm tree was and how it provided nice shade for both properties. They asked us about the tree's history and were impressed that we had regular arborist maintenance. The neighbors sold their house last month. The new family moving in seems lovely. They have 2 kids and specifically mentioned that they were excited about the mature trees in the neighborhood. When we met them during their home inspection, they asked about the tree maintenance schedule because they wanted to coordinate for the future. What a refreshing change. Our lawyer gave us some great advice for the future. Keep detailed records of all tree maintenance, take yearly photos of the tree's condition and maintain good documentation of any neighbor interactions regarding the tree. She said this creates a strong paper trail showing that we are responsible property owners. The total costs we incurred: $775 for pruning, $400 for legal consultation and response letter, and $200 for additional arborist documentation. Either way, it was worth it to protect our property rights and this beautiful tree. Our lawyer told us that in our state, the replacement value of a mature elm tree could be anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000, so protecting it was also financially smart. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I work for my city's sanitation department, and for those that don't know, we do more than just pick up garbage. Here in the upper northeast we can get some major snow in the winter. People notice that the streets get plowed, but don't always know that it's the sanitation department's job to remove it. Most of us doing basic streets just use a pickup trick with the plow attached to the front, nothing crazy or industrial. This story happened several years ago, but for personal reasons I decided to retire before making this public. We had a pretty big snowfall, and when it stopped I think it measured about 1.5 feet. As soon as it was safe for us to go out and start plowing, we did. We try and start as soon as we can, even if it means doing it while the snow is still going, because doing smaller amounts is just easier. I don't expect people to appreciate the streets getting plowed because it is seen as more of an expected thing. What I don't expect is people to get mad about me plowing the snow. I understand that when we plow a street, it means a higher wall at the end of walkways and driveways for people to shovel. I can sympathize with that, but it's just obvious if you're living in a place where it snows. Streets need to be clear for emergencies after all. So anyway, I was doing this neighborhood and I was about halfway down a dead-end street when a woman came out in front of my plow and started just yelling at me. I did not know what at first, since I had the heat and music full blast inside the truck. Still, I couldn't get around her and assumed there was some emergency or somebody got hurt. I jumped out to see what the problem was, and that was when I met Karen. Karen, you're not authorized to come down this road and plow it. This is an HOA and we have rules. You are making a mess of people's driveways and getting snow on cars. Me, miss, I am plowing because… She cuts me off. Karen, I don't give a damn why you are plowing. I've called the police and I'm not moving until they get here. I won't let you continue this criminal behavior. I could not do anything but wait for the police. She has moved herself to basically be standing on the plow, and me moving the truck would have meant her getting hurt. Hurt by fault of her own, but there was no way I was risking my city job for a nutcase like this. I radioed in to let my boss know what was going on and waited for the police. They came and Karen started screaming again that I did not have permission and that she was the HOA president. The police saw the truck had a logo from the sanitation department. I started to explain and defend myself to them, but they told me that they knew I was doing my job and not to worry, they would tell Karen to move. They told her that I worked for the city and had every right to plow the street. I was not a criminal and there was no crime even against plowing snow from a street here. Karen refused to listen and claimed it didn't matter what the city said because she was the president of the HOA and made the rules. Her rules being that driveways and walkways got to be cleared before plows were allowed to come onto the roads. Demanding proof that I even was a city employee because the stamp on the truck could be a fake. Police? Ma'am, we will call and confirm, but I need to ask why you think that he would not be a city employee. Karen, because it's just a truck with a plow on it. Anybody could do that. It's not one of the bigger plowing machines clearing the streets on the news. Yes, on the news show bigger trucks because they are clearing more major streets in the city, not minor and smaller ones in the suburbs. The police have to do what she is asking because she was making a claim that she knew I did not work for the city. The police called in with the license plate and confirmed that I was a city employee. Also telling her that city laws trumped over HOA rules, that she had to move and let me go ahead and continue my work. Making a point that if I did not clear this road, the police would not have been able to respond to her call about it. The irony going right over her head, but she did move away from the plow. Not before huffing and telling the police that it is wrong for the city to send people to plow before people have a chance to shovel out their cars and driveways. And that since it's still snowing, it's a waste of taxpayer money. I started to go back to my truck and the police to their cars. Then Karen full-on sprinted at me and jumped on my back to get me to the ground. I don't have a great back, and Karen was not exactly a small woman. I went down and it felt like she was trying to punch my back, but I couldn't see. The police ran to drag her off of me and put her in handcuffs. I was a little dazed, but after a few minutes it felt okay. Due to city regulations, I had to get checked by an EMT before I continued my shift. I could have chosen to go home, but I still would have been driving back and I didn't have much left to do for my shift anyway. Waiting for the EMTs, other people started coming out of their homes due to all the the commotion. A few even saw Karen being put into the back of a car. One person in particular was this amazing woman who seemed to be like 80 years old. She was the only one that didn't stay back and instead came right up to me. Police asked her to stay back, but she said she just wanted to give me some tea because I looked cold and worked hard. They allowed it, and the warmth of it really did help. She did not have to say much, but that tea, a smile, and a thank you for doing my job will stick with me the rest of my life. I was deemed okay to finish working and got back into my truck. I never was assigned to that neighborhood again, so I never ran into a Karen or that absolute angel of a woman again. However, I did find out what happened to Karen though regarding her arrest, since I was the victim. She was charged with assault against a city employee, calling emergency services for a non-emergency during a time of crisis, since during a storm is an even worse time to waste police time and resources. Also got a charge for resisting arrest since she didn't want to go with them quietly. I had to give a statement about being attacked to make sure that I did not provoke anything and to get details matching. She pled no contest and was sentenced to a few months in jail. It's been years, so unless she pulled another stunt, she has been out and free for a good long while. This was actually the only time during my career that a person actually got mad at me for doing my job. I've had complaints of people getting mad for me refusing to do things I couldn't, but only Karen would get angry about her street being clear of snow and free for police and ambulances to get through. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripestories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible, and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.